Welcome to the Daily Surrender, a space for real, raw, and vulnerable conversations about what it truly means to live in alignment with God's design. I'm Jennifer Ragazzo, a soul-aligned wellness coach who is far from perfect and still figuring out this whole human experience, just like you. Here we talk about the messy, the beautiful, and everything in between as we learn to let go, trust more, and step into the peace and freedom that's already waiting for us. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to the Daily Surrender. I'm your host, Jennifer Ragazzo, and today we're going to be diving deeper into something that's at the very core of healing, something that is so beyond what we see in the physical world. We're going to be talking about the metaphysical, one of my favorite topics of conversation. We're going to be diving into how our thoughts, our beliefs, our emotions, and our energy deeply impacts our well-being, and how surrendering to God's design rather than gripping really tightly to control, which is what so many of us do, is the key, the real key to true healing. You see, healing is not just about treating symptoms or chasing the next shiny object that promises relief. It's about uncovering the deeper layers where dis-ease, imbalance truly originates, and how we can move beyond all of that into the peace and the wholeness and the alignment with divine truth. That the peace, the wholeness, alignment, that all of that leads to freedom. That's what we're all craving. That's what you want. That's what I want. So let's have the conversation. Over the last decade, I've been working as a functional wellness coach, and over the decade, I've worked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different clients, and every one of my clients has been my best teacher. Not only my own health journey, but again, diving in with my clients who come here, who lands on my runway, and unpacking what are the drivers of the dis-ease. So most of my clients will land here with physical symptoms. They'll come here because they've got migraine headaches that won't go away. They've got gut issues and they're struggling with IBS or insomnia, or their hormones are all wonky. Fill in the blank, right? We've all experienced physical symptoms at different times in our life. And they'll come here looking for a different way, looking to really understand their own unique body, their own unique needs, and again, the drivers of their dis-ease. So as I help guide them in finding these drivers, we take a look at not only just the physical, we take a look at the other things that may be driving the disease. We take a look at the metaphysical, which we're going to get into what that even is in today's episode. So I'm going to just give you a really quick example to think about as we go through this episode, because it's something that is very common that I see a lot in the clients that I work with in my practice and that I myself have struggled with, and that would be thyroid disease and hypothyroidism. It's rampant today, more than ever before. So our thyroid depends on certain cofactors, certain nutrients for proper thyroid health. So some of those nutrients are nutrients such as zinc and iodine, selenium, right? All of those nutrients are important for us to have on board for thyroid health. We also need good liver health and good gut health for the conversion of T4 into the active form of T3. So we need good gut health. We need good liver health. We want to make sure that we've got proper nutrition on board and that we're able to digest the foods and the nutrients that we're eating and assimilate them into the cells. So all of that is super important. But what else affects thyroid function? And these are the things that I dive into with my clients. So other things that affect thyroid, which is in the throat chakra. This is the energetic communication center here. So things like struggling to self-express, to use your voice, having unspoken truths, struggling to express one's own personal power. All of these things are very strongly tied energetically to the throat chakra. And the throat chakra, again, that governs our communication, our authenticity, trust in our own voice. We each have been given a unique voice. And when we feel that we can't use that, that can have an impact on our thyroid function. So we can be eating the perfect diet, taking all the right supplements that support thyroid health, and optimizing our gut health as best as we can, and liver health, and doing those things. And we can still be struggling with hypothyroidism, which is why I love taking a look at the metaphysical. So we're going to dive deeper into that today. I'll loop back and share some examples of ways that we can support the metaphysical, even in thyroid health, again, because it's so common and is something that so many of us struggle with. But I want to first kick off our episode today talking with you about what metaphysical healing even is, so that you have a solid understanding of that. So the metaphysical healing, it's the understanding that all dis-ease, and when you hear me refer to disease in this podcast, not just this episode, but the conversations that you'll hear me talk about frequently in the podcast episodes, I'm talking about misalignment. So an imbalance where we don't have ease, we have dis-ease. It's the opposite of that. I'm not talking about the actual label itself of disease. I believe that the labels themselves are very limiting, but we're more talking about the misalignment that's stemming from whether it's physical misalignments within us, emotional misalignments, spiritual misalignments. And it's not just about how we eat, right? So health is not just about how we eat or how we move our body or what supplements we take. Although those things matter, it's also about the energy that we hold, the beliefs that we're carrying, and the stories that we tell ourselves. At its core, metaphysical healing asks us to take a look at the things that go beyond the physical. So again, I used the example at the beginning here of our conversation with thyroid health. So when we're looking at the thyroid, when a client lands here on my runway and they've got hypothyroidism and they're feeling fatigue, and perhaps they feel very sluggish and they're losing hair and they're gaining weight and they have cold extremities, we will absolutely take a look at the physical, and we'll take a look and make sure that they've got the right nutrients on board, they've got optimal gut health and liver health, and that they don't have a lot of external stressors that are sending the message to the thyroid that it needs to put the brake on energy and metabolism. So we do take a look at those things, but we're taking a look beyond them, and that's the conversation we're having here today. So we ask questions like, are we holding on to, like, tightly gripping onto things? Are we trying to control life and the outcomes in our lives? We take a look at what thoughts and fears might be present for us, that are keeping us stuck. Have we forgotten who we really truly are? And I'm talking about like divine, true essence of self. Do we not even know who we are in divine, true essence of self? Have we never given thought to that? We know that exists because we've been created in the image of God, but perhaps we aren't tapping into that. Are we living into our divine purpose? Are we able to use our voice? Are we holding on to anger and frustration? Are we, as women, perhaps living too much into the masculine and not tapping into our divine femininity? When we're doing that, a lot of issues will show up on the left side of the body, left pain on the body, because we're not expressing our feminine self as much. So if we're truly made in the image of God, which we are, created in love and for love, then anything outside of love, anything that is rooted in fear, resistance, or control, is what is going to then create the dis-ease in our body within us. And that right there, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the metaphysical. So what are the things that are rooted, again, outside of love? What are the things that are rooted in fear that have us in a state of resistance, or have us white knuckling the steering wheel on life and gripping to control, or chronically people pleasing, or having very leaky boundaries? Because those things are outside of God's design for us, and they're outside, again, of love. So Let's talk about the tight grip of control. I don't know about you, but I over here am a recovering control freak. There was a time in my life, in my adult life, where it got so bad that I had so much anxiety when I felt that anything was outside of my control. This led to me chronically people pleasing, trying to fix everyone around me, morphing myself into what I perceived everyone around me wanted me to be. I was very enmeshed in other people's struggles and their business because I thought that it was my job to control, and controlling made me feel orderly in my life. But little did I know that all of that tight grip of control was creating more dis-ease inside of me, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So, most of us, again, myself included, we've spent a lot of time in our lives trying to manage our own way to good health. So forget trying to control other people. How often have we tried to control our own selves and our health journey? So that leads to us tightly gripping control, believing that if we just do more, we throw more things at the body, we fix ourselves, like let's just quickly get ourselves fixed. Here's the physical symptom that's showing up for me. I don't like it. What are the things I can throw at myself so that I can get better and get on with it, right? Are there things that I can learn more about? Maybe I can dive deeper into learning. I can just try harder. I can effort my way to good health. And when we do all of these things, the false belief is that we will finally feel whole again. But what's the truth? What is the truth about all of that? Control, my friends, is absolutely exhausting. Exhausting. One of the most common complaints that I hear from women who land here on my runway is that they're so tired. Fatigue. Fatigue is one of the number one symptoms that women complain about when I ask for their top 3 most painful symptoms. Fatigue is often number one. So when we're controlling and we're trying to control every little thing, including our health, we are depleting our energetic reserves. It's like we've got holes in the boat that we're trying to keep afloat. And instead of going in and plugging the holes and letting go of control being a big one of them, we just keep bailing the water out of the boat while we're trying to control everything else around us. And it actually keeps us in a constant state of stress, which fuels inflammation. It tightens our bodies and it creates these energetic blockages in the body. Again, going back to metaphysical. So we've got these energetic blockages in the body, all because we're trying to grip and control. So when we grip too tightly to the outcomes, when we resist what is, when we fight against the current of life rather than flowing with it, our bodies, they respond because that's what we're asking our bodies to do. Our bodies are brilliantly created. So they're going to respond to the environment and the signals that we program it with, the environment that we hang out in. We start to see things like chronic illness, anxiety, digestive issues, tightness in our shoulders, which can lead to all kinds of misalignment in our physical bodies, and headaches that won't go away. And all of these things are love notes from our body saying, hey, something is out of alignment here. I'm inviting you to take a look. Can you please slow it down and take a look at what's underneath? What's the underbelly of all of these symptoms that are showing up? It's not just about taking another supplement. Tightness in the body, sure, that can be a magnesium deficiency, but is this where we just throw more magnesium at ourselves and continue to live in the same environment, act the same way, and think the same thoughts? No, it doesn't work. It's never going to work. So what do we often do when these things arise? We often keep pushing because we've been conditioned. It's the conditioning to believe that something such as surrender means giving up. We're here in this podcast. This community is called the Daily Surrender. And yet we've been so conditioned again to think that if we surrender, then that means that we're giving up. We're not in it, right? Because again, part of the conditioning is that we have control. We're in control. We can actually fix the things. When in reality, it's surrendering. Surrendering is where true healing begins. Truly is where surrendering, true healing begins. So let's talk about surrender. Since we're talking about shifting away from control and shifting into a state of surrender, because surrender, again, I'm going to say this over and over, surrender is the key that unlocks true healing. So surrender, my friends, is not passive. It's not passive, although we can perceive it to be. It's not about doing nothing and giving up and throwing our hands up in the air and saying, screw it. It's about consciously choosing to release the grip on the steering wheel of life, right? Like we're here, like I'm driving the bus and I'm going to grip really, really hard. And if I do that, I'll be in control. Meanwhile, when we surrender, we loosen that grip and we stop forcing. And we stop forcing, we start flowing. And when we start flowing, we start handing the things over to God, trusting that God already has the blueprint of our lives. Like God knows the plan. God knows our yesterdays, our todays, and our tomorrows. And when we let go and we surrender, we're allowing ourselves to be led rather than leading our own way out of suffering. And when we do this, something really, really cool happens in our nervous system. And this is where we can see a very positive metaphysical shift. The body shifts out of fight or flight because of the autonomic nervous system. When we're in fight or flight, different physiological responses are happening in the body. Like we're not making as much saliva. Our heart rate goes up. Our blood pressure increases. Digestion subsides when we're in fight or flight. So when we shift out of fight or flight, our heart rate decreases. Our blood pressure normalizes. Our body flips the switch on digestion. Cortisol is better regulated. So we have better energy. We have a more free-flowing energy, instead of constantly depleting our energy. Our cells, which have been holding on to fear and tension, begin to relax into healing. And our mind no longer is caught in the endless loop of what if, and how do I fix this? And what's the next thing I need to do? It all starts to clear. We're surrendering and we're letting go and we're allowing God to lead us. So perhaps God leads us to the next thing. Perhaps we become prompted to go for a long walk in nature, take a little extra magnesium, take a magnesium soak before bed with some peaceful music. Perhaps we get led to those things, but we're led to them internally. We're not trying to grab onto the things externally in our fitful fight or flight state of hyper control. So this is why spiritual alignment is so foundational to our well-being, because healing, it's so much more than a physical journey. Healing is an awakening. It's a remembering that we were never broken to begin with. It's about peeling away the layers of fear and conditioning and self-imposed limitations so that we can return to the truth from which we were created. And the truth from which we were created is that we were created on purpose for a purpose. We were created in wholeness. We were created with vibrancy. We were created deeply, deeply connected to God. God, who created us in God's image, our limitless God, our God who is infinitely intelligent, our God who is unconditional love, our God who is not a being, a man in the sky, but rather spirit, our God who is undividable, personalized himself individualizes himself in each and every one of us. So that God is inside of us. We are created in that God's image. And when we remember this and we return to this, we step away from those false beliefs that we're broken and we need to start fixing ourselves. We need to do that. We need to go grab onto the things that are outside of ourselves. And that's all part of the beauty of surrender and getting ourselves into a spiritually aligned state. When we do that, that becomes the foundation for our overall well being. That is, when we step into that, again, that becomes that awakening that deeply, deeply connects us to our Creator. And in doing that, it grounds us, it roots us, and all starts to flow from there. So we're going to take a little shift back to the beginning of our conversation where I used an example of hyperthyroidism since it's such a common issue that we see in today's modern society. There's a lot of different reasons for that, but misalignment in, again, the physical, the mental, emotional, and the spiritual is what very much leads to the hypothyroidism. So from a metaphysical perspective, hypothyroidism, it's often correlated with themes of suppressed self-expression, right? Feeling like you can't use your voice. I don't have a voice to use. Either I'm not worthy or I'm not good enough to use my voice, or I'm terrified to use my voice because somebody might criticize me. I've got truths, but I'm not speaking them. I am really struggling with my own personal power. I don't feel like I have any. So therefore I stay quiet. It's like almost as if there's this metaphorical hand over our mouths. And again, because it's very connected to our throat chakra, which governs our communication and our authenticity. We're not using our own unique voice. And so there becomes an energetic blockage in the area of the thyroid. So many individuals with hypothyroidism, they have a history. I ask these questions of my clients too. And as you're listening, ask yourself these questions. So do you have a history of feeling silenced? Have you ever felt like you are not heard? Maybe you're not heard in a specific relationship, an important specific relationship in your life. Maybe it's at work. Maybe it's in your partnership, in your home, with your family of origin. Are you able to fully express yourself? Sometimes this is due to conditioning in our childhood. Perhaps you struggle with people-pleasing tendencies. That's something that I struggled with for a very long time. And no surprise, I struggled with hypothyroidism for decades before I dug deeper into all of this for myself. Perhaps you struggle with fear of judgment. So you do absolutely anything to avoid being judged. You hide, you're hiding. And perhaps you have self-doubt. So over time, the suppression of our truth can manifest itself as energetic stagnation in our throat region, which contributes to the dysfunction of the thyroid gland. It absolutely, there's many reasons for that, even in its impact on our gut health, but just in sticking with our conversation here about the metaphysical, that energetic stagnation is in that whole area where our thyroid, which is it's like a butterfly shaped gland in our throat, is located. So the thyroid's also responsible for regulating things like our metabolism and our energy flow. So metaphysically, that affects our ability to move forward in life, right? So if we've got really low energy and really sluggish metabolism, then we're not moving forward. Instead, we're stuck, we're sluggish. You can see the parallels there. So if someone is stuck in patterns of self-doubt, over responsibility, fear of stepping into their true purpose, this in and of itself can slow down both the physical and the energetic metabolism. And these are things that lead to the most common symptoms of hypothyroidism that we hear, which is weight gain, fatigue, extreme sluggishness. Oftentimes people will struggle with being very cold. Their hair might be falling out. They may struggle with constipation. So how do we heal from a metaphysical perspective? Like when it comes to or thyroid. And you can apply this to really, truly anything. So if you're not someone who's aware that you have hypothyroidism, but these things are ringing true with you, just know that again, health is all encompassing and they may be affecting you. This may be affecting you in other ways metaphysically. So from a metaphysical perspective, when we look at hypothyroidism, we want to work on reclaiming our voice. So just so important. We want to work on speaking our truth with confidence and authenticity. You can start to practice this in small ways. Perhaps it's not going from being really quiet and not speaking your truth at all in the workforce to the next day, knocking on your boss's door and just, verbal vomit everything out that you've been wanting to say. But perhaps it's practicing in small ways as you build momentum to speaking up in a meeting, speaking up when something doesn't feel good to you, sharing your feelings when maybe prior you haven't shared your feelings, working on letting go of your fear-based conditioning. So if you are conditioned to be very fearful and fearful of judgment, especially any beliefs that are there that are keeping you really small and voiceless, again, it's starting to practice using your voice and speaking up, becoming more aware of the areas in your life where you're really fearful and asking yourself, where's this coming from? And is this actually true? Addressing self-worth wounds, recognizing your inherent value outside of external validation. So we always go back to truth with a capital T, truth that we were created in the image of God. God is unconditional love. God is infinite intelligence. God is soul. God is spirit. We were created on purpose for a purpose. We are inherently worthy. We are already validated. We don't need to go externally. All that we need is inside of us. So we dissolve the constructs, the beliefs that are very limiting and distorted by countering them with truth. So if you're struggling with your self-worth, that's an area to lean in on, releasing control and surrendering. Well, that's why we have these conversations here on the Daily Surrender podcast, because we're talking about an everyday looking at our lives, taking a look and seeing, where am I gripping too tightly? Where am I giving power outside of God, the one true power? Where am I trying to white knuckle at my life? Where am I controlling? For me, I needed to start with really little things and build up to the bigger things so that I could prove to myself that I was safe, because my amygdala would freak out when I practice releasing control with really huge things. But when I did it with the little things, like little things in my home, even when my children were younger, and I thought I had to control every little thing so that I can keep them so safe and so healthy. And I started to practice letting them make more choices, not worrying about every possibility of something that could go wrong with them, and letting them be kids and giving it over to God. So picking smaller things and then building up to bigger things. But all of these things, by aligning with truth and really starting to allow yourself to fully express, that's going to help get that energetic flow through, again, that whole throat chakra area, the whole throat area region where the thyroid is. And that's going to support our emotional and our physical healing. So there's an example for you all here of how we lean into the metaphysical. So when we're looking at overall health, it's always it's mind, body, and spirit. We can't leave one thing out. So wrapping this all up here today, if you've been chasing healing, if you've been trying to fix yourself and it feels like you're just running in circles, my friends, just pause and ask yourself some questions, some simple questions. Where am I gripping too tightly? Where am I resisting? Where am I still believing that I'm separate from God rather than embodying God within me? And in embodying God within me, I am fully supported. I have everything that I need inside of me. So where are the areas that we're perceiving separation? Healing happens when we stop trying to manufacture it and instead we align with it. When we stop chasing the healing and instead we allow the healing. When we stop fearing and we start trusting. This is the surrender that leads to true freedom. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to control every detail of your journey. You just have to start by saying, God, I trust you. I trust you. And that, my friends, is when true healing begins. Thank you again for joining me today. If this episode resonates with you, please share it with someone who needs this message. And as always, let's keep walking this path of surrender together. I will see you next time on the Daily Surrender. Thank you for joining me on the Daily Surrender. If today's episode spoke to you, I'd love to hear your reflections. Send me a message, share this with a friend, or leave a review. Remember, true healing and freedom come when we let go, surrender, and trust that God's way is so much better than our way. Until next time, my friends, keep surrendering, keep rising, and keep walking in peace.